Manchester United taking on Astana in the Europa League this Thursday. Now, I was fairly happy with the previous result for Manchester United, only winning 1-0 because it gets Manchester United back to winning ways. And with this game on paper, an easier game than the Leicester game, it gives Manchester United the chance to now win a second game and just build that confidence going. Now, that's why I didn't care if it was 1-0. I'm happy to take some scrappy 1-0s just to get Manchester United's confidence back into the group of players of winning games consistently on a regular basis. So just getting the job done against Astana is Manchester United's main aim for this game. Just getting the group stage out the way as early as possible, win the first 3 or 4 games if possible. Then the last couple of games you can just rotate, rest players, give players game time that maybe have come back from injury, use players a chance, etc. So that would what it would be. This is on paper a decent group for Manchester United, a better group than when we were last in it with Jose Mourinho for me. And Manchester United should be good enough to win this group comfortably. Whether we will or not is another matter, and my main concern is the attacking areas for Manchester United. Now, there's going to be changes for Manchester United, there definitely is, but this gives Manchester United an opportunity to win a trophy and get back into the Champions League. But you can't underestimate the other teams in it. There's some very, very difficult sides in this competition, but it does give Manchester United a great chance of getting back in it, because I don't think Manchester United have got any chance of getting in the top 4 this season, with the inconsistency in the attacking areas, which is why this competition could prove to be the return of Champions League football, because you've only got to have a few wins in this competition and you could get to the final, win a few first legs and you can be through and shoot your way to the final and potentially win it. Cup competition, that's what you can do. You play a few easy games and you can shoot all the way to the semi-final, final. We've seen that in the FA Cup, teams getting there. In the Champions League, some teams that weren't the favourites have got further than expected because they maybe got a bit lucky, played some easier games and fluked their way through, which can happen in this. So Manchester United have got a good chance of getting through and could get far in this competition. Now, what sort of team is Ole Gunnar Solskjaer going to put out for this test? We don't know too much about Astana, and well, I certainly don't anyway. I just know that they're a team from Kazakhstan. I think they've got a couple of games in hand and would be top if they win them games in hand. They're quite a way through they're almost at the end of their season. I think it ends at the end of the year, so they're going to be pumped up and ready to go for this game. They're well in the thick of the fight for the title at the end of the season, the crunch period, so they're going to be really up for it. But I think he's going to rotate this side slightly, but this is the sort of side I would like to see Ole Gunnar Solskjaer go for Manchester United. Now, obviously, the goalkeeping situation, David De Gea signed a new contract, but I would prefer him to rest this game out for the weekend and would go with Romero in goal. But I wouldn't be surprised if De Gea doesn't start this game because we've got Rochdale next week and Romero will definitely plan that anyway. So I would go for Romero, but wouldn't be surprised to see De Gea in goal. Now, the back 4 is a bit of a conundrum. We've got some fullback issues with players out injured, but we've got enough centre-halves to get 2 centre-halves out, which can be changed. So I would go for 2 Zabi and Phil Jones as the centre-back pair, and that should be good enough to contain this side. I think their top scorers have only got about 7 goals this season, so we should be good enough to contain this side, to be honest. And I think that they're probably going to sit back and try and make it difficult for Manchester United in this game. I don't think they're really going to go out to blast Manchester United off the park, obviously, because they've got a lot less quality than Manchester United. Now, 2 fullbacks are going to be the problem. I would go for Rojo and Dalot. If Dalot is fit, he's tweeted that he's ready for the Europa League, so it does hint that maybe he could be starting this game, and maybe he was already fit to play or take some part in the game the weekend, but he wanted to fully rest him so that he could play in this game against Astana, which wouldn't be a bad first start for Manchester United of the season for him. He's been injured for quite a while now, Dalot, but a good fullback for this competition with Manchester United as a backup man, definitely for Manchester United. And Rojo can probably do a job at left back against these as well. Now, midfield will be interesting. Personally, I would like to see a midfield 3 rotated players. Fred getting his first start of the season, Garner getting his first start of the season, Gomez getting their first start of the season. That's what I would like to see. We're not going to see that. Gomez may possibly be on the substitutes bench. Ghana probably won't even be on the substitutes bench, but started the season like on absolute fucking fire. Scored some absolute fucking bangers for the under-23s in the opening couple of games, and we haven't seen anything of him on the substitutes bench yet. I think he did make the squad for one of the Premier League games, if I'm not mistaken, a few weeks ago, but didn't make the substitutes bench. But that's the midfield three I would like to see. Gomez definitely deserves a start, but probably will have to make do with the place on the substitutes bench. But if any of them impress with coming off the substitutes bench, if Garner's on the bench or Gomez is on the bench, there's a very good chance that they could be starting against Rochdale if they do impress in a week's time. So it gives players an opportunity to impress for that game against lesser opposition in the FA Cup as well. So that's great. And then up front, I would personally like to see probably a midfield three of probably James on the left, Chong on the right, and Greenwood up front. He may well choose to still keep Marcus Rashford up front, because I suppose it would be a little bit of a concern that would them three players be able to break this probably Astana park the bus job down. That is going to be the massive problem for Manchester United. Which forwards we put out? We've struggled when teams have sat deep. We've really struggled against Crystal Palace to break Crystal Palace down, and ended up losing that game. And we had we had so much of the possession, certainly first half in that game, and couldn't break them down. And we had less possession against Chelsea and against Leicester in the Premier League, and both them games we actually won. So they had the upper hand of possession, and we actually won them games. I don't think that Manchester United are really very good at dominating the play and swatting teams aside at this moment in time. We certainly are at this moment in time a counter-attacking side at Manchester United, and probably need them to come out a bit. But if Manchester United could somehow, hook or by crook, get a couple of early goals after 20-25 minutes, be 2-0 up, something like that, then I would expect Manchester United to swat these aside. But I don't know. I think this could be a difficult test for Manchester United in how to break them down. I really do, and that is, as I say, my biggest concern. That is why I don't see Manchester United getting into the top four this season. So I just don't think with the forwards that we've got that they're consistent enough and got enough goal threat and are going to score enough goals for Manchester United in order to get us anywhere near the top four this season. And if we do put out a lineup out with the likes of Chong, Greenwood, maybe James or even Rashford, you're looking at that. Then the players, I mean, even Jesse Lingard, who didn't play at the weekend, could come back into the fold for this game. But none of them have really got stats that you would look at and say, Christ, he's going to score and he's going to assist a lot of goals this season, which is a worry. I know we've got Anthony Martial on the sideline as well, and he doesn't really look like he's ever going to hit the 20-30 goal a season mark, which Manchester United desperately need two players to hit them heights. And I just don't see it from Rashford or Martial this season that they're going to hit. I mean, even if they hit 20 goals each in all competitions, I would be pretty surprised with them returns. And with Greenwood still only 17, Chong only 19, and very inexperienced in terms of first team football. And I know Gomez can create chances and score goals himself. Very little chances in the first team for Manchester United, although he did impress in the summer tour. Can these players step up to the plate into the first team? And it really is a bit of a conundrum. I do though think Manchester United will probably get the job done and grind these out. I'm going to go for Manchester United winning this game 2-0. Even if we win this game 1-0, I would actually be very, very, very pleased with that, because it would just get the job done. We could then move on to the next one in the group, win that as well, and then once you've won the third game, you're practically there. And then the fourth game, if you win that as well, you win the group, and then the last two games, you can literally put a reserve side out, and you won't have any problems then in the Premier League with so many injuries and that. If you want to rest the likes of Pogba, which you can do, which we pretty much I think are for these games, because I don't know, but I think some of them could potentially come back. But I think he's just going to be cautious and not bring the likes of Martial and Pogba back into the fold for this game, because of the concerns of West Ham at the weekend, which is bigger than this. But we still got to get the job done, win this game, because we do not want to be coming to the last 2 or 3 games in this group and still needing to win games, because under Jose Mourinho in this Europa League, we actually finished second in the group in the end, and we put pretty much a fairly strong team out throughout the whole competition. I think we won our first game about 4-0 in that, and we struggled and we lost a couple of games in it, and it was a horrendous group stage campaign, although we did get through, but we want to get the job done as quick as possible, so that then the last 2 games coming up towards the end of November sort of time, that we don't have to put out any first team players. And when we go to Astana, I think it's the second to last game in the group, we can take a pretty much reserve team and we can leave the likes of Rashford, Marshall, Pogba, Wan-Bissaka, these sort of players, Harry Maguire, Lindelof, all these sort of players, leave them at home and they don't have to do that massive travelling all the way to Astana for a stupid game that we still need to win, which hopefully we don't by then. We can maybe even rotate, bring the likes of Levitt in and players like that if we can get the job done in this group early on. So hopefully Manchester United can get the job done this coming Thursday. I haven't, obviously at this moment in time when this video is being recorded, we haven't heard from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at his press conference, so there may well be some players that I've talked about here that may have picked up knocks and injuries that he doesn't want to risk for that game, so we will have to wait and see. But anyway, let me know your thoughts on the game, like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and I'll talk to you all again soon. See ya.